welcome to Supply Chain 600 Seconds. Mattias Axelsson, you are Manager Logistics at SKF, the bearings company, worldwide global player. Can you please introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what you do at SKF, and also perhaps say some words about the company?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Stefan, for having me. It's looking forward to this discussion together. As I said, Mattias Axelsson, working with SKF for the past 23 years in a lot of different roles, both working in staff and also in operational context. Mainly focused over the past years within the logistics area, but everything from master data to systems to customs, transports, warehousing, basically everything covering logistics. And as you said, I'm working at SKF, which is one of the global industrial players when it comes to the rotating equipment, and also, of course, bearings is what we are mainly famous for or known for, both within the industrial sector and also in the automotive sector. And of course, one of the elements for us going very much forward is also when it comes towards the sustainability sector. So a growing sector for SKF these days is very much about renewable energy that we're working with.
Yeah, as you said, we're going to talk especially about sustainability today and the logistics and supply chains role to enhance sustainability. We all know that this is a big topic and that it happens everywhere, but now we're going to talk especially about what you do at SKF, and also how IT and digitalization can help you to drive sustainability. Can you tell us broadly what areas you focus on, especially within logistics when it comes to sustainability?
Yeah, we from a logistics perspective right now, we're focusing a lot on the scope 3 initiatives. What are we, let's say, consuming when it comes to sustainability in towards the factories, from suppliers into the factories, from factories to warehouses, from warehouses all the way out to customers, where we are in control. That is very much the area where we are focusing on sustainability from a logistics perspective. From a group perspective, we of course focus a lot from sourcing raw materials, working with raw material suppliers. How do we get net zero factory and manufacturing sites? And consequently also then how do we reduce the overall footprints for our items when they are being used? And now within logistics, a lot of activities is focusing on transportation. That is the main contributor to the negative CO2 effects. How can we make sure that we do this in a more sustainable way? Either working a lot with consolidation of shipments, working on CO2 efficient drivers or vehicles, so to speak, and of course working very, very much also with our freight forwarders and the shipping owners and so forth. Together with them, outline the plans and drive the activities.
That's really a big area since a few years, the transportation area when it comes to sustainability, and it's really positive that it happens so much there. But there's not just within transportation that you can do things. You can do a lot within the warehouse as well that affects the wider supply chain. Could you give us some examples of what you do there?
No, absolutely. We are working a lot with actually it starts very much with our customers, that you actually agree with customers. What is the frequency? How often do we deliver? Can we consolidate the orders? And when this comes and being set through in the customer masters, goes down into the warehouse management systems, and then of course to create an optimal picking activity, an optimal packing activity that you don't use and you don't ship an unnecessary air in the products. So you use the fill rates, you use the box calculation methods, and in the packing part, but also in the driving part inside the warehouse, that you optimize your pick runs to the large extent. And by doing that, you consume less energy per pick, so to speak, that actually the more optimized it is, the more you gain.
Do you have an idea of how much you can affect sustainability? Can you give us like a figure by doing things in the warehouse? Because what I want to try to illustrate is that it's not just a detail, a little thing. This can really affect the sustainability a lot.
Indeed, and I think very much when it comes to packaging, I think is another area where if you can really think of how do you use a packaging size, do you use the right box calculations that you don't ship unnecessary numbers of parcels to the same customer, because every time you need to basically, how can we consume less packaging material, how can we consume less plastics in every shipments that we do in order to really leverage on utilizing all the methods we have in place. To put a number on it, I would say it's difficult, but I'm more saying that more a believer that it will not be a silver bullet that changes everything, but small bits and pieces will go forward. And we have seen examples when we have towards customers, when we worked closely with our end consumers, that we have reduced the number of shipments by 50% by just working more on consolidation, working on packaging adjustments, and so forth. We have not shipped 50% less volumes, but we have shipped 50% less shipments. That's something where I believe that there is an untapped potential actually to go forward with this, working with customers and to get a dialogue there to understand how can we and they more work together to achieve this in a joint way.
How can you drive within such a large organization like SKF? How is it? It must be difficult to drive this kind of behavior at the different sites, at all the sites that you have. How can you coordinate this and make it happen?
Yeah, and I think it starts actually from the ambition. SKF launched a new strategy in the beginning of this year in early February, where we talk about intelligent and clean growth. So very much actually comes from the top in the strategy, and it goes down all the way to all the people. We have a target setting now on the individual targets within the group. Actually, that actually one of the targets we do have is for sustainability for all employees within the group. And I think it starts with that actually, that you get a measurable way of how you can improve and how you can drive it. With that, of course, there's a lot of work to get where we want to be. But if we don't start and if we don't put up an ambitious targets to be net zero to 2050, we will never achieve it. So I think we have a very, very ambitious targets, but they are also there to be met. And in my role is very much to make it visible, to make it transparent. How much are we actually consuming by using air freights or using rail freights or using normal road freight, to make that visibility towards internal stakeholders.
How much is driven by you and how much is driven in this sustainability work by your customers and the customer demands? Because I guess that it would be preferable for you to be a little bit before the customer demands, so to speak.
Yeah. I would say typically it starts very often with the customers, but we are more and more trying to be proactive, that we do it before the customers are actually asking for it. We need to be prepared. We have major and big OEM customers today that put a lot of requirements when it comes to the products, the product life cycles, the sustainability of the items and so forth. Very, very tough targets on those. When it comes to our more distributor customers and so forth, there is less requirements, but there I believe that we can be in the forefront actually to be proactive and doing it. We have started, and unfortunately from time to time we need to use air freight, but when we do, we have started now to use, for example, sustainable air freight fuels as one option to do, or work together with freight forwarders or shipping lines that have or say fuel efficient fleets rather than the old fleets. It's also a way of how we select our partners to work with to drive it. But for me, it's not, we cannot do it alone. We need the customers, and also we need our partners in the chain. So I think the three together needs to come together. How can we drive this jointly?
And many times I guess that customers can help you, and you can do things together that you then can spread wider in the organization.
Exactly. Okay. And if I give you one very, very concrete, it's a small example, but it's a concrete example. We have a big customer of ours who is in the automotive industry. They are making electrical vehicles, and now we actually have on the site here in Gothenburg, we have 2 of those vehicles doing our internal transportation on the site.
Yeah.
So there we have, together with the freight forwarder, with our customers and ourselves, we have come together, all 3 of us, and created this solution. And it's only, okay, it's two vehicles, but we have 90 factories around in the world. We have an opportunity actually to use this on internal shipments much more than what we do today.
We have traditionally we are used to get the deliveries faster and faster and more frequent. Do you see that there's a shift in attitude towards this, and that companies may accept to have the deliveries a little bit more seldom and perhaps store a little bit more themselves and so on? How do you see this?
I would agree to that. I think that is the tendency that is coming through. I think transportation, both in terms of cost and capacity, has been taken for granted over the years. It's basically been too cheap with transportation. So, and I think the recent 2.5 years with all the COVID pandemic, the geopolitical disturbances that we currently are facing, is putting another challenge on that. And on top of that, with in Europe, you have the EU mobility package. We have the scarcity of driver shortages, both in EU as well as in US. So I think here we need to be working more together, that we cannot ship and take for granted that you can ship every day that you need to do. And I see this one driver on this will also be the e-commerce business that will drive this, that also we as consumers, we will get different options today, actually, with an option saying, okay, if you wait a bit longer, you will get a better CO2 effect, you will pay less. I think we can also use this in a B2B environment as well, not only in B2C environment going forward.
We haven't really seen it yet, have we? At least not in the B2C environment, but perhaps it will.
No, I think it's coming. I think my personal opinion, I think it's driving the behavior, and I think also here is, and I could understand also, and I see that if when you're a truck driver, that you are, instead of driving, I'm generalizing of course here a bit, but if instead of driving a long distance between 2 nodes, and you're away from your family and friends for a long period of time, instead of actually you can drive in your vicinity, that will also make a shift, that will be a shortages of drivers on the long haul run, which means that the transports that we have, how do we use them more optimized? And we are working in SKF very much also on fill rates, on trucking fill rates. How do we get them up? Balancing that with the customer priorities and requirements, that needs to be balanced.
We have Consafe Logistics as sponsor of this talk, and so I think that finally you should say something about the cooperation that you've had since actually 30 years.
Indeed.
And Consafe Logistics is a well-known player here in Sweden. It's perhaps a bit not so known outside. I'm not sure actually, but it's certainly a well-known player here. What's can you describe the kind of relation that you have developed over the years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have been working with Consafe, as you said, mid-90s actually and onwards, and been really a success partner together with us, and developing our warehousing activities, the warehousing processes. We have and actually a very high level of standardization with our warehouse management infrastructure that we do have. So literally today we can take a picker from the warehouse in India, put them in the warehouse in Gothenburg, and they can start to work the next day. What differs our solutions is the level of automation, but from a process perspective, screen-wise, all of this we have worked and developed together with Consafe to drive it. They've also been instrumental now on working more and more towards our factory logistics activities, where we're combining our manufacturing ERP system together with our WMS system, in our case then Astro, or what we call internally, we call it BUS, which is built on the Astro platform. But actually to use also the logistics know-how in the manufacturing and the factory handling activities more than what we have done before. So I really see this as a partnership going forward. We are embarking upon service as software solutions, going away from the traditional on-site server solutions that we do. So we are working with them for the futures. And I would say a key element is the warehouse management system is very much the brain in your warehouse operations. And we need to consider that the brain is always performing on the top. Otherwise, it will be harder to follow.
Yeah. And isn't it a bit strange that many companies still don't have, smaller companies than SKF, of course, but they still actually don't have warehouse management systems, many of them. And so you must have been quite an early adopter with this in mid-90s.
I think we are. I think we were actually, and I would say we still are. And I compare very much with what and how we work in the warehouse process, compare with other companies around. And I would say I have not seen so many, I would say, that actually are ahead of from a process thinking than what we are. And of course, it's not only SKF processes, but it's the combination of the two, where I think you need to set your processes, then you need to work with a system that supports in your processes in the way of how you do to create the efficiencies. And I agree with you. I think it's many companies today that actually can look upon it and they have one WMS in one part of the world and another one in another part of the world, still the same company. For us, we have customers that are global, that are being served from all of our different warehouses around the world. And if it doesn't look the same when it arrives, the customers, that's very important for us. And therefore, with Consafe, we have our warehouse, we have 14 different warehouses around in the world, the same system, and the processes looks exactly the same.
It also illustrates, I think, that SKF has since long been very ambitious when it comes to logistics in general, and it's kind of a trademark of SKF as well. Thank you very much, Mattias Axelsson, for this interesting talk about sustainability, logistics, and the use of warehouse management systems.
Thank you.